There are two ways to plant grass seed, and the difference between them decides whether about 20% of your bag comes up or about 80% of it does. The first way is what is printed on the back of the bag. Spread it evenly, water it, wait. That is what almost everyone does, and it is why almost everyone has stood in their yard 3 weeks later wondering where $40 worth of seed went. The second way takes about 10 extra minutes and costs nothing, and it is what sod farms and lawn crews have always done. Here it is, right now, no build-up. You score the soil first. You drag a stiff rake across the area you are seeding to open up shallow grooves in the surface. Then you spread your seed, so it falls down into those grooves instead of sitting on top. Then you drag the rake back across in the other direction, very lightly, just enough to close the grooves over the seed. Score, seed, close. That is the whole thing. That is the method that hardly anybody does, and it is the single biggest difference between seed that comes up and seed that feeds the birds. Now let me get the skepticism out of the way immediately, because I know exactly what half of you are thinking. You are thinking that sounds like busy work the internet invented. The bag says spread and water. Grass grows in ditches nobody rakes. Why would 10 minutes with a rake change anything? Here is why, and it comes down to one phrase you are going to hear me say a lot in this video. Seed to soil contact. A grass seed is not a plant yet. It is a package with a tiny amount of stored energy inside it, and it gets one shot. When it absorbs enough moisture, it cracks open and pushes a root down. If that root immediately hits soil, it anchors, starts drawing water, and the plant lives. If that root pushes down and finds air, or dead thatch, or the hard-baked crust on top of dry soil, the seed burns through its stored energy reaching for something that is not there, and it dies. Quietly. You never see it happen. You just see nothing come up. Every problem with broadcasting seed on top of the ground traces back to that one thing, and when you understand it, everything else in this video is obvious. So, let me show you exactly what happens to seed that just sits on the surface, because there are 4 separate ways it dies, and most people are losing seed to all 4 at once. The first is birds, and it is not a small effect. Grass seed is bird food. That is not a metaphor. It is literally what it is. Spread a bag across an open lawn on a Saturday morning, and by Sunday afternoon, you have hosted a buffet. Seed sitting in a groove with soil over it is invisible. Seed sitting on top is a meal on a plate. The second is water movement. Seed on the surface has nothing holding it. The first real rain, or the first time you leave the sprinkler on a little too long, and it floats. It runs downhill, it collects along the edge of the driveway, it pools in the low spot, and then in 3 weeks you have a thick, dark green stripe along the low edge of your yard, and bare dirt everywhere else, and you think the seed was bad. The seed was fine. It moved. The third is drying out, and this is the biggest killer of all. The very top surface of soil is the fastest drying place in your entire yard. It heats up, wind hits it, and it goes from damp to bone dry in an hour on a warm afternoon. A seed sitting on that surface is riding the most violent moisture swing available. A 1/4 inch down, in a groove with a little soil over it, is a completely different world. It holds moisture for hours longer, and hours are exactly what a germinating seed needs. And the fourth is the one I already described. Even if the seed survives the birds, the water, and the drying, and it does germinate, that root comes down and finds a hard surface with nothing to grab. So it dies at the last step, after doing everything right. Now think about the arithmetic. If each of those 4 takes a share of your bag, you are not losing a little, you are losing most of it. And this is why people conclude that seeding does not work, or that they bought cheap seed, or that their soil is cursed. None of those are true. The seed was just never given somewhere to land. So that is the case for the method. Let me now walk you through doing it properly. because the details matter, and there is one detail in particular that people get exactly backwards, and it ruins the whole thing. Start with the surface. Before you score anything, you need the area actually exposed. That means mow low, lower than your normal height, down around 2 inches, and bag the clippings. Then, if you have dead thatch or a mat of old brown material, rake that out first and haul it away. You cannot score soil you cannot reach. If your rake is bouncing off a spongy brown mat, keep going until the tines are touching dirt. Now the scoring. Take a stiff garden rake, the metal kind with rigid tines, not a leaf rake. Press down with real pressure and drag it across the area. You want visible lines in the soil surface, shallow, maybe a 1/4 inch deep. Go in one direction across the whole area. You are not tilling. You are not turning the soil over. You are scratching it. If you are digging trenches, you are working way too hard, and you are going to cause a different problem I will get to shortly. On a bare dirt patch, this takes seconds and the rake bites easily. On an existing thin lawn, you are working the rake down between the grass plants, and it is more effort, and you will pull up some dead material as you go, which is a bonus. Then spread your seed. Half the amount going one direction across the area, and the other half going perpendicular. That crosshatch pattern is the single easiest way to get even coverage, and uneven coverage is what gives you a lawn with dark, thick patches next to thin ones. Then the closing pass. Turn the rake over so you are using the flat back of the head, or use the tines very lightly, and drag it back across at a right angle to your scoring direction. Barely any pressure. You are nudging soil over seed, nothing more. And here is where I have to stop and give you the warning, because this is the mistake that turns a good method into a disaster. Do not bury the seed. Grass seed wants to be about a 1/4 inch deep, a 1/4 inch. That is roughly the thickness of 2 stacked coins. When people here get the seed into the soil, a lot of them go out and rake vigorously and mix that seed down an inch or two, and then they wait, and nothing ever comes up, and they are more confused than when they started. Here is why. That seed has a fixed and very small amount of stored energy. It has to power the shoot all the way up to sunlight before the plant can start feeding itself through photosynthesis. From a 1/4 inch, easy. From an 1.5 inches, the seed runs out of fuel underground and dies in the dark. So you have 2 opposite failure modes here, and they are equally fatal. Too shallow, and it dries out and blows away. Too deep, and it suffocates. The window is narrow, and it is close to the surface. Barely covered is exactly right. If you can still see a fair amount of your seed after the closing pass, that is not a mistake, that is correct. Why would honestly rather you under-rake than over-rake on this? Slightly exposed seed with good contact underneath still works. Buried seed does not. Alright. That is the free version, and for most yards it is genuinely all you need. But let me tell you about the machine version, because for some of you it is the right call. It is called a slit seeder, sometimes a slice seeder or an overseeder, and you can rent one. What it does is exactly what you just did with a rake, mechanized. It has blades that cut narrow slits into the soil, and a hopper that drops seed directly down into those slits as it rolls. Perfect depth, perfect contact, in one pass. Rental runs somewhere in the $70 to $100 range for a half day in most places, and they are heavy, so you need a vehicle that can handle it. When is it worth it? If you are doing a large area, several thousand square feet or more, the rake method turns into a genuinely brutal afternoon, and the machine will pay for itself in your back alone. It is also worth it if your existing lawn is thin but present, because working a rake down between existing grass plants across a big yard is, and the machine cuts straight through. When is it not worth it? Small yards, patches, and anywhere you can realistically cover in an hour with a rake. Do not rent a machine to seed 200 square feet. One thing to know if you do rent one: run it in 2 directions, at an angle to each other, with half your seed each pass. Same principle as the crosshatch with a spreader. One direction leaves you with visible seeded lines and gaps between them. Now, how much seed? Because this is where money gets wasted in the other direction. Read the bag and use the overseeding rate, not the new lawn rate, unless you are genuinely working with bare dirt. Those numbers are usually quite different, often close to double, and people grab the bigger number thinking more is better. More is not better with grass seed, and this surprises people. If you put down way too much, all those seedlings come up at once in the same square inch and immediately start competing with each other for water, light, and nutrients. You get a thick, fuzzy mat of weak, spindly seedlings that cannot thrive, and heavy overseeding also creates humid, crowded conditions right at the soil surface, which is exactly what fungal problems love. A too thick seeding can fail as completely as a too thin one. Use the rate on the bag. It is not a suggestion from a company trying to sell you less product. And since we are talking about the bag, turn it around and read the label on the back. Because the method I just gave you cannot rescue bad seed, and a lot of people are buying bad seed without knowing it. There is a panel on the back of every legitimate bag, and it tells you exactly what you are holding. 4 numbers matter. The first is the germination percentage. That is the share of seed that will actually sprout under good conditions. Good seed is up in the 80s or 90s. If you find something down in the 70s, put it back, because you are paying for a bag where a quarter of the contents were never going to do anything at all. The second is inert matter. That is filler, chaff, dust, coating, material that is not seed. A small percentage is normal. When you see inert matter climbing into the double digits, understand what that means. You are buying a bag where a meaningful portion of the weight is not seed, and you are paying seed prices for it. The third is other crop seed, and the fourth is weed seed. Both should be as close to zero as possible. Weed seed listed at even a fraction of a percent adds up to a genuinely alarming number of individual weed seeds across a big bag, and you are about to give every one of them the ideal conditions you just built for your grass. Score the soil. Perfect contact. Constant moisture. You are not just planting grass, you are planting whatever else came in that bag, under greenhouse conditions. And this is the part that makes people angry when they realize it. The cheapest bags on the shelf are cheap precisely because of these numbers. Lower germination, more filler, more contamination. You think you are saving $15, and what you are actually buying is a smaller amount of viable seed plus a weed problem you will be fighting next spring. There is one more thing on that label worth 2 seconds of your time, and it is the test date or the sold by date. Grass seed loses viability as it ages. Bag that has been sitting in a hot warehouse or the back of a garden center since the previous season will underperform its printed germination number, sometimes badly. Buy current season seed, and if you have a partial bag left over from last year, store it somewhere cool and dry and expect less from it. Match the type to what you already have, too. Overseeding fescue into a bluegrass lawn, or the reverse, gives you a patchy, mismatched texture that never quite looks right, because different species have different blade widths, different colors, and different growth habits. If you do not know what you have, take a photo of a single plant pulled from the lawn and compare it, or buy a blend designed for your region and accept a little blending over time. None of this is complicated, but almost nobody turns the bag around, and the method in this video only pays off if what you are putting in those grooves is actually going to grow. While we are on the subject of things that decide the outcome before you ever put a seed down, this is the kind of detail I keep running into over and over on this channel, and I have put all of it in one place at Backyard Verdict. Rats, timings, what to buy, what to skip, organized so you can look up your exact problem, instead of scrubbing back through a video. There is a QR code on screen if you are watching on a television and do not want to type it. Now, back to covering that seed. Because there is one more option, and depending on your situation, it might be better than the rake closing pass. Instead of closing the grooves with soil, you can top dress. That means spreading a thin layer of material over the whole seeded area after the seed goes down, a 1/4 inch, thin enough that you can still see grass and seed through it. What to use? In order of preference. Compost is the best choice. Screen, fine compost. It holds moisture beautifully. It feeds the soil, and it is exactly the right texture to nestle around seed. If you are going to buy anything for this project, buy compost. Peat moss is the classic, and it works. It holds a remarkable amount of water. 2 warnings on it. It is expensive for the coverage you get, and when it dries out completely, it becomes water repellent and forms a crust, which is the opposite of what you want. If you use peat, you cannot let it go dry, not even once. Straw is what a lot of people reach for because it is cheap, and it does work for holding moisture and shading the surface. The problem is that ordinary straw frequently carries weed seed, and you are effectively planting a weed crop alongside your grass. If you go this route, buy certified weed-free straw specifically, and spread it thin enough to see ground through it. A thick straw blanket will smother the seedlings it was supposed to protect. What not to use is topsoil out of a bag, which is often heavy and inconsistent, and definitely not sand unless you have a specific reason and know what your soil is. Now the watering, and I will keep this tight because it is simple. It is just relentless. From the moment the seed is down until the seedlings are established, the top 1/4 inch of soil must stay damp. Not soaked, damp, and it cannot go dry, not one time. A germinated seed that dries out is dead, and it does not get a second chance. That means short and frequent, which is backwards from everything you know about watering an established lawn. Established grass wants deep and infrequent, so roots chase water downward. New seed wants shallow and constant, because there are no roots yet to chase anything. In practice, 2 to 4 short cycles a day, 10 minutes or so each. Morning, midday, afternoon. If it is hot and windy, add 1. How long do you keep that up? Depends what is in your bag. Perennial ryegrass shows up fast, 5 to 7 days. Thal fescue takes 7 to 14. Kentucky bluegrass is the on, 14 to 21 days, and it will make you doubt yourself. Most bags are a mix, which means the ryegrass comes up first and looks fantastic, while the bluegrass is still underground doing nothing visible. Do not stop watering because you see green. Keep the schedule going until the seed in your bag has had its full window, or you will kill half of what you paid for at the finish line. Once seedlings are up, and you have mowed twice, then you transition to deeper and less frequent and start pushing those roots down. 2 more things about timing that will save you from doing all this work at the wrong moment. Grass seed germinates based on soil temperature, not air temperature, and cool season grasses want soil somewhere in the 50 to 65 degree range. Late summer into early fall is when that happens in most of the northern half of the country, and it is the best seeding window of the entire year. Better than spring, because you get warm soil, cooling air, more reliable moisture, and, critically, you are not racing summer heat and summer weeds. And if you have warm season grass, Bermuda or Zoysia or St. Augustine, this is not your window at all. Your seeding season is late spring into early summer, when your grass is in aggressive growth. Doing this in the fall on warm season turf sends seedlings straight into dormancy before they are established. The other timing thing is weed control, and this one catches a lot of people. If you have put down a pre-emergent herbicide in the last several months, do not seed. A pre-emergent works by stopping seeds from establishing, and it does not know the difference between crabgrass seed and the grass seed you just paid for. Check the label on whatever you applied, look for the reseeding interval, and respect it. This single mistake wastes more grass seed than almost anything else, because everything else in the process was done correctly and it still failed. So here is your weekend. Saturday morning, mow the area low and bag the clippings. Then rake out any dead thatch until your tines are hitting actual dirt. Take a hard look at what you are working with, because if you are staring at a spongy brown mat, that is your real job today, not seeding. While you are out, get your seed matched to your existing grass type, and a bag or two of screened compost. Saturday afternoon, score the soil. Stiff metal rake, real pressure. One direction across the whole area, shallow grooves you can see. Then spread the seed. Half one direction, half perpendicular, at the overseeding rate on the bag. Then either close the grooves with a very light pass of the rake in the opposite direction, or top dress a 1/4 inch of compost over the top. Either works. Do not do both aggressively, and above all do not bury it. Then start watering, and set alarms on your phone. Every single person who fails at this fails somewhere around day 8 or 9, when the novelty wears off and the seed still has not visibly done anything. Then it comes up, and the difference is honestly startling if you have only ever broadcast seed before. Not a scattered fuzz with bare patches, an even, thick carpet, because for the first time, nearly all of what you paid for actually made it. Now, something I want from you, and this one is a bit different. If you have seeded a lawn before and been disappointed, tell me what you did. Specifically, did you rake anything, or did you spread it on top and water it? I want to know how many of you were doing the broadcast method without ever being told there was another one, because I suspect the answer is almost all of you, and I suspect the entire lawn care industry is fine with that. And for anyone who is going to try the score and close method this weekend, come back in 3 weeks and tell me what your take rate looked like compared to last time. Same yard, same person, different method. That is about as clean a comparison as any of us will ever run, and if 100 of you report back, we will collectively have better data than most product labels. I read all of them, and the good ones end up shaping what gets covered next. Go find a stiff rake, 10 minutes, and it changes the entire outcome.